Hello everyone, welcome back. So today I'm going to be out here in our vegetable garden, and it is already getting hot already. It is like just a little bit after 8. It's like I'm out here in full sun. It's probably already 75 degrees outside. It's going to get up to like 90 today. So I want to go ahead and take advantage of the morning and see if I can get a little bit of work done. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be putting in our drip irrigation system. So before I know it, it's going to be hot and dry, and I got a lot of raised beds along the side of the garden. And those raised beds do tend to dry out and they need watered the most. So I'm going to set up that drip irrigation system where it's mostly going to be focused on the raised beds along the side. We're going to set that up on a timer, and and make it pretty much automatic, maintenance free, where I don't have to worry about coming out here and watering every day. It'll just do it for me. So let's go ahead and get started before it gets too hot. So the first place we're going to start is here at the water hydrant. I'm going to put a Y connection here. That way I can still use a garden hose or fill up a bucket if I want to. Okay. And then I've got an electronic programmable timer here. This thing's actually, I've had it now for, this is my second year, I think I've had it. Batteries are still good in it. And I may have had this for 3 years. But that's where our timer is going to be, right there. And then I've got this, I think it's about 10 feet of garden hose. I don't know where I've got this really short garden hose, but this is just enough to make it over to the garden. So we'll just take that, put that here on the timer. And then once we get over to the garden with this hose, that's when we'll start putting in the drip irrigation. So it's actually kind of nice having this hose here where I can bring this over to the garden, and because I can always just take it loose when I mow, it'll be real easy to take off. So this is the next piece that's going to go in there. So on this side over here, this has got a pressure regulator. So it's going to drop my water pressure. It normally runs about 50 pounds. It's going to drop that down. I think this is either 15 or 25 pounds. It's going to drop it down to. And then it switches to this filter. And this is just got a little screen filter in here to make sure you don't clog up your emitters in your drip system. And honestly, I've never really had this get dirty while using the rural water system, which is basically like city water in the country. If I was using well water or pond water, this would probably get dirty. So this is going to go in next. So we'll go ahead and attach this to the garden hose and attach it to the raised bed. So I've decided to bring my garden hose through the fence here because eventually I'll have a gate here in this doorway. Right now I just got a temporary gate. So get this attached. And then once that's attached, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and fasten that to this side right there. So I've got my pressure regulator and filter. I've got that attached to the garden hose, and then I've mounted it to the side of the raised bed using 1/2-inch conduit clamps. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a T-fitting here at the end, and then we're going to take drip irrigation line going both ways so we can feed all the raised beds around the garden. So I'm using these barb tees, and they are the cheapest way to go, but they are also the hardest way to go. All right. So this is 1/2-inch drip irrigation line, and I'm just gonna, this is like main trunk line, it's just tubing. And we're just gonna cut off enough to make it to that corner. So this should be plenty of drip irrigation. I might as well cut it to go to the corner in case I add on later. Okay. So after you cut that off, you've just got an open set of tubing. So to plug that off, you use this simple figure-8 deal. So you slide that over the tubing, and then you do a bend. You bend it in half, and then put it right back through that figure-8, just like so. And that kink is enough to stop this low pressure water from leaking out the end. That's all you gotta do. So now I'm going to go ahead and put my tubing on the other side of this tee, and we will go the other direction. So today is the first day I've wore shorts. So my legs are very white. I hope I'm not blinding you guys with these white legs, but I can't wear cowboy boots and pants all summer long. I'm eventually going to have to try to stay cool. I'm going to just take this to the corner as best I can, and we're going to cut it off and put an elbow fitting in the corner so we got a nice turn, and then we're going to go the other direction down that way. So I put another conduit clamp in that corner so that I could hold that in place and be able to stretch this out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start cutting in some of these T fittings, and I'm going to put a T in here so I can run some of this irrigation line down these raised beds right here. And then I'm going to put a T in right here so I can run down this row of broccoli and cauliflower. So I'm going to put a row cover on this. I haven't done it yet. I've been waiting to put in the drip irrigation system. But once I put that row cover over that, I'm afraid that it won't get as much rain. And I want to make sure that it does get irrigated. So I'll put one here on that row. And then we're going to put, I've got another raised bed behind the camera. I'll put a T there to get over to that raised bed. And then I should be able to have at least this 1/2 inch, basically the trunk line of the irrigation system. I will have that to all the raised beds. So this is an old roll of the drip irrigation tubing left over from a previous use in a garden. And it already has these drip emitters. Can you see that poked into the tubing? So this is one way you can do drip irrigation, is you can take this tubing, you can poke these emitters in there anywhere you have a plant, and to get it to water that plant. So this is more the customizable version right here. And these emitters you can buy on the flow rate. So this black one is a 1 gallon per hour. And right now I think on this roll they're spaced every 3 or 4 feet for tomato or pepper plants. And so I'll probably have to add a few emitters so that it waters this cauliflower and broccoli. But I think this will work for me. Another good thing about it is this roll already has an on-off valve on there. So there's a valve where I can turn this on and off if I don't want to water the cauliflower. So I think that'll work out good. So I'm going to put it in that T fitting right back there. I'm going to stretch it down this roll and then cut it to length. And then we may have to actually pop a few more of these emitters in here so that we're watering. I'd rather water probably close to every foot or every 2 foot to make sure that everything gets watered good. So let's go ahead and roll this one out. Oh, getting caught. Almost the right way. So to add one of these drip emitters in here, all you got to do is basically you get like a little poker tool where you poke a hole in it. You just take that, pops a little hole in there, and then you take your drip emitter, if you don't drop it, and poke that into the hole. It's got a little barb on one side, and there, get it to pop in the hole, and there you go, you got a drip emitter in. So the next thing you do is just kind of hold it in place, and they make these landscaping staples. They're like just for the small tubing like this, and then I'll probably staple it down right through the hole that we burnt for the plant. And I'll probably do that every, I don't know, 5 to 10 feet. So now that I've got the that 1/2 inch main water line, I've got it kind of ran around the garden all the way around, I'll be able to tap into that line and run drip irrigation into each one of the beds. And what I'm going to be using this pre-made drip tubing. Instead of putting in individual emitters like we did down this broccoli row, I'm just going to be using this pre-made tubing. And you buy this in how far apart your emitters are. And I think this one is about a 1 foot spacing. There's an emitter here and there's one here. And yeah, so this is what I'm going to be using pretty much the rest of the time for the raised beds. And this is a 1/4 inch line, so you use like a little 1/4 inch barb and poke a hole in that 1/2 inch water line, and you can connect them together. It's like a little barb coupling. But the way I'm actually going to do it is I've got a little valve instead. So I've got this little bitty water valve here, and you can turn this on and off. And that's what I've got to tie into the main trunk line, and then I'll be able to select whether I want to water that raised bed or not. Just gives me a little bit more flexibility. It's something you don't have to have, but some vegetables, some raised beds you may want to keep a little bit drier. You might want that choice. So I'm gonna go ahead, start putting this in. So this is my onion bed. So maybe I can do a little better demonstration here. Poke a hole in my drip line. Insert my little valve. I'm gonna start running my drip line. And I'll probably run it in between a couple of these rows. Boy, I've got her all tangled up. Look at that. I got a feeling this tubing is going to be plenty long. Oh, it helps to have this done when the plants are not big. The earlier you do this, the better. I'm always late on everything. All right, so now that I've got my rough shape, I'm going to cut it off. All right, so I cut that off in between two of the emitters, try to do that right in the middle. And then I've got what they call a goof plug. And I can plug the end of this 1/4-inch tubing with it, but you can also use it to plug holes that you poke in that 1/2-inch tubing as well. You can pull the emitters out of the 1/2-inch tubing and put that goof plug in there, and you can plug your hole. So they're pretty flexible, something you about have to have. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I am just going to staple this thing down, trying my best not to poke any of the vegetables. Plus trying to give the onions room to grow too. So my drip irrigation is actually probably about, what, 12 inches apart from each other. And that should water the whole bed. That should work pretty good. So I'll give you a little closer shot here. So this, if you can see, there's a hole in here. That's the drip emitter in the tubing. And then what I'm using, using a little 1/4-inch barb fitting and connecting that to a piece of just black hose. This is made for drip irrigation, this black hose. And then on this end, I've got my little 1/4-inch valve. And then this will plug into the 1/2-inch line. I'll poke that into the 1/2-inch line. And this is just basically giving me enough tubing to get from the 1/2-inch line up to the top of the raised bed and inside the raised bed before the first emitter. That's all I'm trying to do, is just get up to the raised bed before dripping water. So I've got most of the drip irrigation in now. Starting to get pretty warm out, so I'm going to go ahead and just test it. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on and see if we can make sure there's no leaks or anything. Make sure everything's dripping properly. Whew, almost got wet. I'm glad that didn't get me. That would have been terrible. So I think if I put this on auto, and then I think I can just hit the manual button, and we'll tell it to turn on for 15 minutes. See how it does. So you can see that emitter tubing right there and how it just kind of slowly drips. And that's supposed to be 1 gallon of water in an hour. Well, it looks like we got a leaker. So this is probably where an old emitter used to go in there, and it's been taken out. So we're just going to use one of these goof plugs, these little 1/4-inch goof plugs, and pop that in there where that emitter used to be. And now it's plugged. All right, so I think everything's working good. Only had that one leak. Okay, we're going to set the start time at 4 a.m. and we are going to let it go for, let's go an hour. And then it'll be done by the time I wake up in the morning. And we'll do it every day for now. Sounds good. See how it goes. Put it in auto, and that's it. So I didn't end up getting that drip tape in all the raised beds. I think I've got like 3 more left that I want to put it in. But it's getting so hot out here, I think I'm just going to call it for this morning. I'll come back in the evening when it's cool and shaded and I'll finish up. But I'm happy that I got the main part of it in. I've got that 1/2 inch water line going down this side and then going down the back side. And I can tap into that anywhere I want to add drip irrigation. It's just as easy as popping a hole into it, and then I can add that 1/4 inch drip tape and then add some irrigation. Or I can even just cut through it, put in a T, like a 1/2 inch T, and then add another like 1/2 inch trunk line. So it's just real flexible. If I want to add drip irrigation, I mean, I can have it added in a matter of minutes now. So it's pretty happy that that's done. So, and I've got the, I've got that line coming down here and irrigating all this broccoli. So I'm happy that that's done. I can come back. I'm gonna put that row cover over the top of that, try to keep the insects off of it, and hopefully have a good crop this year. So yeah, pretty happy with what I got done this morning. But it is hot out here in the sun, and I'm gonna go cool down. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video.